What's up, y'all? Welcome into LA Sports Brotherhood. It's me, Ryan, here with my brother Matthew, and we are on the heels of the biggest win of the Lincoln Riley era. USC goes to Vegas to take on number 13 LSU, and in what I think, honestly, was just a really well played game on both sides. Super hard nosed, super physical, a real college football game from a team that should be a real college football program for the first time in a very long time. USC was physical. The LSU was what we thought they were going to be, and USC stood up to the test and just took the win. There was no sloppy mistakes, nothing up in the air to be like, I don't know. Like, this is the most definitive win USC has had in a hard fought game. And honestly, it is the best case scenario for me. Because if this, you know what, before we get into all the narrative stuff, Matt, how are we feeling? We're recording this like a day and a half after the game. We were so excited immediately after. We wanted to come in a little more measured. But with the hype still in the air, Matt, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling amazing. This is 2 years. Lincoln Riley's coached the USC for 2 years. This is the best I've ever felt because, like you said, it is the first real game that we've watched. The first time we've actually put two sides of the ball together. Like, literally the first time that's ever happened. And I've always said if Lincoln Riley can get a defense, specifically a defensive coordinator, they're going to be scary. We looked great. So I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball. And, of course, I'm going to start with D'Anton Lynn because that was one of my two main takeaways on the defense side of the ball. D'Anton Lynn was a hell of a play caller yesterday. He, frankly, he outcoached LSU. There's no other way to say it. He outcoached LSU. Um, you know, they really didn't run the ball down our throats. I think he kind of like dared them to throw the ball. And even when they throw the ball, everything was in front of us. And which leads to my second point. We tackled so well. The tackling wasn't just like, oh, it's good enough for top 75. It's good enough for an elite offense. The tackling was just great. Straight up, it was good tackling. My first shout out, Kamari Ramsey, just totally looked like a guy that this USC didn't have the past 2 years. We didn't have a guy like Ramsey. He just really looked solid, really looked physical. And yeah, the defense was different. We always say, like if USC could just have an average defense, this is certainly average at the very least, maybe even good. So for me, the two found the foundation for a defense because the last 2 years that wasn't considered a defense. I don't know what the hell that was. So now to me, we have the foundation of a coach who's going to have everyone lined up because there was no mistakes. Everyone was lined up and a defense that will tackle. That's the two foundation. Now we just got to get the high end talent, and we're right there. And by the way, that was a great LSU offense that we really did play well against. I mean, think about it. If LSU punches that in the end zone in the fourth quarter, we're down 10. It's not looking great. D'Anton Lynn, hell of a play caller. We got the stop, and the offense took over. So, yeah, I was really high on the defense. We all were really high on the defense, but what was your main takeaway from the defense?
Yeah, I think I was surprised how much of an impact just like play calling and scheme would have on the team. And this isn't public because we weren't really doing this before during last season, but you know that I always said Grinch is a horrible coordinator, but these players are awful, and it's very difficult to have a competent scheme with bad players. And I didn't think he had a competent scheme at all. I just want to be clear. He was awful and he needed to go. Grinch was. But I was like, my apprehension with this team going into even like the most recent videos we've put out is that I didn't know how much a good scheme can make up for talent that I didn't think was there. And makes up a lot. Like really like the watching the adjustments in game. I forget his name. The receiver for LSU, Key, I think his last name is, right? Or something like that.
Lacey.
Lacey, excuse me. Yeah, I just ended with a Y. He had 7 catches for nearly 100 yards or 100 yards in the first half. Did not catch a single ball in the second half. Like, that's just an example of very tangible changes to the looks they're getting. They're going with three down front, simulated like 5-2 fronts essentially with two linebackers on the line of scrimmage. They were still dropping defensive ends in coverage, like Shelby was in coverage multiple times, but there was a purpose to it. On the unfortunately broken play, it was like a third down, which should have been a stop because Arnold missed. He was in cover two. He wasn't dropping. Shelby dropped back into the flat to stop that tight end route that they ran like 5 times throughout in the game at that point. And it's like that type of stuff. Like when Grinch dropped Muhammad last year, when people were upset that like at the concept, I was like, that happens all the time. It's just Grinch doesn't know why he's doing it. He just sees things happening and he's like, oh, this is probably fine. But with Lynn, Shelby is still dropping back on an obvious passing down, but it's because there's a specific play that they're covering because you scout and you know what's happening and you cover it. And he was completely covered. It was Lucas was trailing Nuss, the quarterback for LSU. Like it would have been a sack if Arnold was in the right spot. So that's where I'm like, that process was so night and day from last year to this year that was really the thing that stuck out to me the most.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind with that is with having an amazing defense coordinator that will make in-game adjustments. A lot of quarterbacks out there, pretty much all of them in college football, are one-read guys. They know where they're going before the ball is. So in that situation where it was Shelby that dropped in the tight end, they did it 8 times. So that wasn't there. If it wasn't wide open, the guy wouldn't have thrown it
Yeah.
because a lot of these quarterbacks are one-read guys. So if the defense coordinator can outsmart the other offensive coordinator, a lot of times it's going to end up in a sack because these quarterbacks are one-read guys. But yeah, a lot of good stuff about the defense. There was one clear, like, a lot of people were worried about, all the fans are talking about the same thing. The secondary was amazing. Cobb and Mascarenas or more so Cobb had a great game. Arnold was a little bit shaky, but still he played pretty well. As a whole, linebackers are pretty good, but the pass rush wasn't very good, and it is important to keep in mind those are 2 Sunday tackles, like they're going to be in the NFL. But to me, first of all, Bear had a just god awful game. He didn't play as much as we thought he would, and he just looked lazy. I think he only had like 1 tackle. But the other guys, the way I'd group the D line is you got guys Muhammad, Meyer, Nate Clifton. Those are a group of guys that will fight their ass off, and they played very, very well. They were aggressive. They were physical. They just don't quite have the athletic gear to be like an NFL guy, but they fought their ass off, and they did really, really well against the run. I would group those guys together, and then I would group Bear and Lucas, 2 guys who are very, very disappointed, former at SEC, and then Shelby, who has a lot of potential, made some plays, but he wasn't that everyday defensive end.
Yeah.
So suddenly, like a Meyer Clifton rotation at D tackle isn't the worst thing in the world the way they played. I was very impressed with them. The way if this team to make this team like a good defense, either Shelby or Lucas has to be a starting defensive end, like a Big Ten caliber defensive end, and Bear has to be Bear. That to me, that's like the takeaway for this D line. If one of those two, or maybe a combination of Lucas is good against the run and Shelby's like a 3rd-round rusher, that spot between those 2 guys, someone needs to pick it up. Muhammad's solid enough. Amaya Clifton, rotation solid enough. And if Bear can be the Bear from last year, suddenly you have a pretty good unit.
Yeah. Okay, I want to just add to what you're saying. I first watch, well, live watch, you and I both noticed Bear was not playing as much and didn't seem to be as impactful at all. He, upon like second watch, just like watching replays and highlights and stuff, he was getting doubled basically every play, which is just what happens to interior defensive linemen, which I think is a twofold point. On one hand, he's getting doubled, which means he's drawing attention, and the defense wasn't bad with him on. So in fact, they're good the entire game, but especially like they were solid. They had a lot of stops when he was like primarily in the rotation for a couple of the series he was in, because he was taking attention. And like you were saying, Meyer and Clifton were way more productive than I thought they would be. They didn't have crazy tackle numbers, but they knew where to be, and they were physical enough to be where they. Also, I want to add Kobe Pepe too. He had a couple very big, didn't make a play, but he created enough disruption, like on the Gentry stop on 3rd down in the 4th quarter. Pepe beat the center across his face, shaded the other side, and pushed him back and allowed Gentry to get there. Anyway, Bear does his job, takes up space, and he did it well. Like I think PFF, which isn't my favorite, but like they had him graded as the highest defensive lineman on the team because he was doing what he was supposed to do. But on the other hand, it kind of means, and this is what I've been a little afraid of silently, it means he's not really as dynamic as we were expecting him to be. If he's a space eater that has good physical traits and can make some plays against lesser competition, that's genuinely super helpful. So that's great. But he's not a oh God, they have Bear. What are we gonna do? Like interior guys are hard to be that anyway. But now it's kind of like if you go double, he won't be doing anything. But you have to double, so if he has someone good beside him, it'll be good. Like that's very helpful. But I think we may need to begin tempering expectations. And I'm not going to do it yet. I want to see against Michigan and against other good lines because Utah State is a game he should dominate. And that's where, like, if he doesn't, then it's like, okay, I think the role he has is a little more diminished. But yeah, anyway, I just want to say that about Bear.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of held him to that standard.
No, exactly. A lot of SE fans did. And they saw the PFF grade and stuff. It's like, oh, well, he was good. And I was like, yeah, he was definitely a helpful player on the team for sure. He didn't have like I think that's where I've changed since like you said he had a bad game. I think it's very fair to say he had a not Bear standard game, which would make him seem bad. But I think like he helped the team when he was on the field, and that's what I would say. Also, the other point I wanted to make, we're talking about Shelby and Lucas. Shelby had a huge tackle for loss too on a late game drive. I was listening to this isn't my original thought. I was listening to the Tunnel Vision podcast. I forgot one of the people on the panel were talking about it, and they mentioned that Lucas and Shelby, when they're on the ends, and Muhammad as well, they weren't really trying to get upfield. So they were like considering maybe they were specifically trying to keep contain. And I don't know if that's just like cope because Lucas didn't look like a good pass rusher when he was trying to rush. Though I will say there was a clear difference when he was like trying to get up the field. He was still kind of like making the tackle work as opposed to kind of catching him and reading, which were like he was doing that as well. And that was making me upset because it's like, this is a passing down. I don't know what you're doing. But I think that's something to consider. Just like because you said the tackles are great. So I think it's possible that on a lot of downs, especially early in the game, they weren't really trying to go upfield crazy and create these little running lanes for the quarterback or anything. So maybe there's a contained thing. That's what I'll say in terms of the pass rush. I don't think it's going to be great this year, if I'm being honest. I don't think they have the horses. But in terms of today, the LSU game production, that might be what happened.
Yeah, I think overall, I'm really proud of the way they defended the run, and a lot of it was just heart, man. Like you said, those three guys, Pepe, Clifton, and Meyer. If those three guys can play, that level, this whole time we've been saying who's gonna be next to Bear, who's gonna be next to Bear, who's gonna be next to Bear. If they can play like that, that's pretty solid. I'm really proud of those guys the way they played. Shelby, like you said, he makes these plays. It's like wow, like is he the next star like defensive end because he really can be. He's that level of talent. If he can, progress, as the season goes on, that'll be huge. But overall, secondary was fantastic. The tackling was fantastic. Lynn completely proved himself. He will one day be an NFL defense coordinator. Let's just hope it's a little later. Maybe we can get another season out of him because he really is a defensive genius, and it's good to have him. Overall, just incredible performance from the defense because that LSU offense is good. Great quarterback. Lacey was amazing. 2 NFL tackles. That is a good ass offense that you held to 20 points. So good job to the defense, but Lincoln Riley's team are always defined by their offense, defined by their quarterback.
Sorry, I'm really sorry to cut you off before we transition. I need to say something about the linebackers because I've said so much about them before. Mason Cobb played well. It's the first time I've said that since he's been a Trojan, so I wanted to make sure I'm clear about this. He was good. He was a productive player for USC. Easton Mascarenas Arnold played every snap. I think they could have rotated him more because I wasn't really feeling him. But when Mason Cobb was playing on the line of scrimmage as like the outside linebacker in a 3-4 or in a 5, they're sometimes running the 5-2 with the 3 defensive linemen front. He was the athletic player we expected him to be. And Gentry was incredible. Again, I think he needs to play more, even if EMA is theoretically a better Mike. I'm fine with Gentry playing more, just like whatever. Anyway, sorry, I had to cut you off. I've slandered Mason Cobb since the day he's arrived. The first spring game I saw him, I was like, this is not good. I was immediately, same way I kind of reacted with EMA. EMA was not bad, but Cobb was an actual productive player, and I'm hoping it sticks. I think they found a good role for him. They moved him around more, took advantage of his athleticism. So yeah, sorry to cut you off like that, like so abruptly, but I needed to make sure I get that in.
Yeah, I mean, I shouted him out briefly earlier, but yeah, he does need more love. I mean, he's a good player. It's just, I mean, it is very hard last year, the situation he was in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even want to get into it, but it was very hard, in that defense. EMA was solid, but having him as EMA as Mike, Cobb as Will, Gentry can be a really impactful player. We saw him get a TFL, diving behind the line, almost got that pick. He is such like he causes havoc there,
Yeah.
and he's not gonna have to play Mike and fill a gap like that, but he can be a very good guy. You can send him on a blitz. He can drop back and get a pick. Like he is a kind of a unicorn at linebacker, and the genius that Lynn is, he is gonna utilize him. He had a great game. I'm really excited about that situation.
Yeah. Same here.
But like I was saying, with the offense, what were your thoughts about the offense?
I I'm gonna be positive first because not that there's a lot of negative. There's a couple things specifically, but I think Miller showed exactly why Lincoln trusted him so much because I don't know if maybe I'm reading too much into what I saw. I think it's very clear he's a, like you were saying earlier, most college quarterbacks are, so it's not bad because he's good at it, but he's a one read quarterback. And that read is what Lincoln Riley is telling him in the headset, like right before the play starts. Because there's a few times where Miller is like, it's 1.5 seconds. Granted, it's because line wasn't really giving him time, but it's less than 2 seconds. He's looking singularly at one person and throwing it. He's incredibly accurate, especially in those throws, so it's not like a risk. But on the Kyron Hudson, the incredible one-handed catch to seal the game with the targeting. If Lincoln, excuse me, if Miller held the ball for less than half a second more, he would have seen Zach Branch streaking up the middle for a touchdown. Like Branch was wide open because it was cover two. He was Miller was holding the safety onto Karen Hudson's route. If it's just a quick snap and throw to Branch as a touchdown, I'm not going to complain about that at all. This isn't a complaint. I'm just saying things like that make me understand that this is very much Lincoln playing through Miller Moss's body. But Miller's great at that. He had an incredible game. He was super accurate. There was no risk about anything. He did get stripped. It was a strip sack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was trying to. It was off tempo. He had to he was trying to make something happen, and that's not really his game. But yeah, I think he was great. Receivers looked great. Zach Branch is still being used like he's Percy Harvin for the Seahawks instead of like the Tyreek Hill clone that he kind of projects to be. I think he caught one ball on like a wide receiver route that's more than 5 yards down the field, and that was kind of it. So I want to see more growth from him. But he every time he got the ball, he looked explosive. Frankly, no other comments about the skill position. I'll let you take over that. Woody Marks looked great. Jacoby Lane is the dangerous person we thought it was going to be. Yeah, I'm super pleased with what I saw, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, what he got is just, one of the best offenses in the country. Miller, outstanding game. Not really a complaint. I do agree. I mean, almost everyone's a one read quarterback in
Yeah,
college football. We got to get to know Caleb. But, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. One, because, I mean, if as an extension of the coach, literally there's not a single guy you'd rather have than Lincoln.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, literally. And Miller, Lincoln really trusts Miller. The one thing I agree, obviously I agree. I've been high on those receivers. Every one of them made a play. I know Makai only got one catch, but dude showed off his speed and size. God, just throw the ball up to Jacoby Lane in the red zone. He's going to get it like 90% of the time. Zach is the most electrifying player in the country. Woody looked great. What I want to say is, I think it's what no one's talking about is that attendance was more than the Super Bowl. It was loud. It was the first game of the year, a first real start for Miller Moss, for the left tackle, for the right guard, for all four receivers. None of those guys were like everyday starters. Maybe Branch played a lot, but still he wasn't Taj Washington. This
Yeah,
offense was so brand new and so young, and they really kind of just didn't miss a beat. They ran a 2-minute drill in that environment, like I just said. A lot of sophomores, a lot of young guys. The O line never played together, and they ran a 2-minute drill just so smoothly. Miller didn't even look nervous. He did it. He was accurate. That was so impressive considering this was a ranked matchup when none of these guys have started before. So I was just so proud of them. They looked great, and they really are just only going to get better. But it's USC, it's Lincoln Riley. The skill position is going to be great. Quarterback looks like he's great. Really, the big question is that line of scrimmage, that O line. So, what did you think about the O line?
Yeah, I think the same way with Bear. I on the second, like in third, like highlight watch throughs and just like looking over stuff. I'm more comfortable with the O line than I was watching it live. They weren't good, but they had way too many legitimately positive flashes for me to say they were bad. The pass protection, specifically from the right tackle spot, that's going to need to get better, and I don't know how it's going to get better, but that's like the biggest weakness we have so far because Mason Murphy moving his feet. Granted, we're getting rushes from probably some of the most talented edge rushers we'll face, like the just fat quickness and with the scheme. Like I don't know how many better players we're gonna see coming off the edge like that, but we're gonna like need to shape that up. But like I don't know, they're so good at some stuff. I pointed it out while we were watching the game. Alani Noah, when he's pulling, is like an elite guard. He's anyone that stands in front of him, he's getting them out of the way and getting them out of the way in a brutal fashion. But when he's man blocking or like zone blocking, it's a little tough. He's getting beat across the face. Like it's not great. The run game, the average, I think it was under 4 yards a carry. It wasn't good. Like there's so many plays where Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner when he was in, like they were behind the line of scrimmage, multiple people around them already, and they kind of had to find a way to fall forward to not lose yards. So I think with the O line, Elijah Page was physically outmatched some multiple times, but I think he was like mechanically sound and knew what to do, and I do have high faith in him. Pregnon, he's kind of slow on the get off, so he got beat across the face a couple times, but he's stupid strong. And like if he gets his hands on someone, it's a good block. It's just got to work on the reaction speed. Monheim was actually pretty impressed. He was very solid. Like he was fine. Snaps were good. He didn't have that much trouble with his matchup. And then I've talked about Noah and Murphy. But yeah, it's a mixed bag, which is better than I thought it would be. Like after first watch.
Yeah, it was one of the weirder like watches to and like giving an opinion on how you think it went because like you said, it was like there's these goal line plays where McCree as a tight end and everyone they
Oh,
just
McCree, yeah.
obliterated them. It's like my goodness, those guys we just pushed them back like it was nothing. But then also like you said, Pregnon gets beat across the face 2 yard TFL, or same thing with Noah, or Noah pulls like you said obliterates a guy to 20-yard rush. It was just like so here or there, and I just think it will get better with time. You know, like I don't expect I expect them to dominate Utah State.
Yeah.
But it's like I mean Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State. All three of those teams are probably top 10 defenses in the country, and they're all three on your schedule.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to improve. But I think you do have time. I think Noah can only get better. Monheim's a stud. You know he's gonna be a stud. He's an NFL center. He has NFL hype right now. Page, he, oh my God, number 4, I forgot his name.
Oh, he
Absolutely
put that arm in
destroyed
his
him back.
chest. Oh my god.
But other than that, like you said, he was technically sound. He will be a good player, I believe. Murphy, it's just gonna be like, please, for the love of God, just don't give up that many sacks, please. The interesting thing for me though is, I think we can run it downhill as long as they can just hold their blocks, like you said. Don't get beat across the face. That's gonna be dangerous. It was so hard to determine like how they weren't pass pro because I mean, like you said, Miller was one read. We were throwing the ball in like
Yeah.
seconds, you know. So it's just tough. I mean, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see, you know, how good they will be in pass protection because it's a little like we have, I think, the most talented receiving core in the country. And by the way, this offense is gonna be elite next year. Like it's crazy. 4 sophomores, but like it will be a disservice if our pass protection is so bad that we're not allowed to throw downfield with guys like Deuce, Branch, and Lane. You know what I mean? It would be a disservice. So I'm really, really hoping that pass protection. I think that's my biggest concern with this offense The skill guys are incredible. Woody will run if there's a hole. Everything's going to be on this offensive line. That will take us from, good offense to like an elite Lincoln Riley offense. So, what my biggest thing that I suggest, to look for going forward is that pass protection.
Yeah. I think, like, to your point about the receivers, they have such crazy ball skills that even though they weren't, there was no play where they had great separation. Oh, actually, it's not true. The deuce seam route he ran in the second quarter, I think it was, that should have been the touchdown on that drive before the penalty. He was pretty clear. He had the safety was stuck basically, like he wasn't in a pedal or anything. He couldn't get his hips around because that's the type of stuff Deuce can do. So that one was clear. But otherwise, it's like Lane is incredibly smart with his hands to the point where it's like very clear push offs, but he's doing it at a moment where the DB is also grabbing him. So it's like you can't really call it on him. Like on the touchdown he caught, full arm extension into the DB's chest. But like you can't. What are you gonna call it? Because he's grabbing the DB is grabbing his jersey. So it's like it's the same thing. You're seeing the same thing happen. But Lane's so much. His physical frame is insane. Long ass arms. He's pushing off. He's catching it perfectly. I love watching him play receiver. But like I think the biggest concern for me that can be fixed is actually Lincoln Riley himself. The lapses in his play calling, I've been calling out internally amongst our family. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it since the Oregon State game in Caleb's first year. Like he just has these moments where it feels like he predetermines what he's going to do at the start of a drive and then kind of like gets mad when it doesn't work the first time. So he doubles and triples down. And like I don't he and weirdly to the LSU game, it was that he was trying to run the same type of run too much. Like Woody, I like more than Marshawn Lloyd, if I could be honest, because he gets vertical immediately. Marshawn Lloyd is probably more talented, but I think he knew that he was more talented, so he kind of ran side to side a bunch and tried to get this little one cut and burst. Anyway, not to slander him because he was very talented. But Woody Marks is getting the ball, sticking his foot in the ground, and running forward. Like he might be patient a little bit, but his patience with his shoulders facing the end zone. Like he's going forward, so it's gonna help. He's gonna help the O line a lot because it's not enough opportunity for them to get like beat crossing their face. But like besides that, it very clearly wasn't working. They're running this kind of slow mesh as if Miller Moss is gonna pull the ball, which doesn't give Marks enough time to build momentum, which I really don't like. That's another part of the scheme that's like it doesn't make sense to me. It's like when when Helton was here and Sam Darnold was the quarterback or Cody Kessler was the quarterback and they were running like these pistol read option type handoffs and it's like what the hell are you doing? Like does it matter? Actually the LSU is doing it too with Nussmeier. Like it's just like he's not keeping the ball. So why would we like slow mesh that type of stuff doesn't help anything. Anyway, I would hope that can change. But it's like the short game passing wise can function as a run game and in a case like this where you're not getting any run push at all, it works better because your receivers are better than the DBs. Like that was a very clear matchup advantage we have, and we didn't really do it until the end. And Miller Moss drove down the field twice, just like easy. And I think that's where it's like, I feel like Lincoln gets too scared about being typecast or is too like conscious of what people say about him. So it's like, nah, we're physical. I changed the defense actually this year, but we're running the ball. And it's like, just throw. Miller Moss is perfect for doing what you want to do. Just throw the ball and it's fine. And fourth quarter changed. Fourth quarter, we won the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this offense is gonna be incredible. I think he has, the exact personnel he wants. I do think he kind of predetermined this is gonna be we're gonna have trouble protecting Miller, so that's why everything was quick, quick, quick.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see. I mean, obviously against Utah State, that shouldn't be a problem. So I'm interested to see like how if things change after week one, because obviously we need this week one. He was not going to give him a chance, to rack up 10 sacks. So I want to see if something changes next week and if that carries in to Michigan. Obviously we got the bye week, but then into Michigan, which by the way, that game is looking a lot more winnable now. We'll save that for whenever we do the preview. But yeah, this offense truly, I think will be an elite offense. God. Also, I can't believe I haven't said his name. Shout out to Kyron, man. That was a
Yeah.
hell of a game. The best catch he's made in his career, the best catch I've seen this year, and it was his career high in yards. He really looked, and then he had the biggest catch to seal the game, another one-handed catch, and then took a massive hit. Shout out to Kyron. Shout out to the whole receivers. This may be one of those where we're looking 5 years, saying, "Oh my God, they had 4 to 5 NFL receivers."
Yeah. I mean, I know internally with us, I kind of tease Miller Moss's like fans up being like, oh, he's a true Trojan or whatever. But I think this game was a testament to sticking through. Like when you're not getting time, but you know your turn is coming, waiting, developing, honing your craft. Miller Moss, legitimately great performance. He looked exactly like what we needed from him. Accurate, like genuinely crazy accurate, hitting great throws. Kyron Hudson, been around for a while. Definitely the biggest vet in the wide receiver room. Stuck around. He got a lot of looks. He had a couple touchdowns taken away from him by like legitimately great plays from the DBs. But he has two of the biggest highlights of the season. The biggest highlight of the season so far, and it might not change because that's a psychotic catch. But like also the biggest catch of the season. Like that, if you stick around through adversity, it will pay off if you actually are committed, and they were. And I really love that. Like no matter how much I like to tease Miller Moss's situation, like genuinely, it's awesome. I love seeing that.
Yeah. So I mean, lastly, offensive MVP, defensive MVP. I'll start. I mean, it's got to be Miller.
Yeah,
Obviously, I don't know if you're gonna take the same guy. It was Miller. Just unbelievable game. It is tough. He only had one touchdown. Obviously, it wasn't his fault, but he. I don't remember him making a throw saying "damn." Other than the Jay Fair, that little screen, that was literally the
yeah.
only one that was like off target. He played a hell of a game. It's just so he is a Trojan through and through, 100%. Defensively, I'm gonna go Kamari Ramsey.
Yeah,
He
me too.
it was a guy. It was something that like we just haven't seen. Even just physically, he looks so much bigger. He looked fast. Open field tackles. That's gonna be huge. Also, it's gonna be huge because, and this hit me today. I can't believe I haven't brought this up yet. Lacey is probably the best receiver we're gonna see the whole year, realistically. And the corners did a pretty good job. Lynn did a pretty good job.
Hmm.
So those open field tackles are gonna be huge playing against these run teams like Michigan. Their quarterback is just atrocious. They don't even know who they want. Notre Dame has no weapons. They're going to run the ball. Penn State obviously is going to want to run the ball. So those tackles are going to be huge. They already got the toughest matchup out of the way with Lacey. So yeah, that'll be huge. Anyways, defense MVP to Kamari Ramsey.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I mean, I think with the Big Ten, the change, like the physicality, which is real, like that changes. But also, yeah, I don't know who else has a better receiver. We're not playing Ohio State or Oregon this year, so yeah. Also, to the Kamara Ramsey point, I fully agree. He's a defensive MVP for me as well. But Jalen Smith also continued his incredibly solid tackling as a small defensive back, and even as an outside corner, he still was making those plays on runs and helping set the edge. And that was crucial, especially as we get into these matchups where it's like the receivers aren't really that much of a threat. Like Ramsey's undersized typically, but he's one of the most sure tacklers I've ever seen as a defensive back. Like that's crazy. So I want to shout him out too. Him and Ramsey being two of the 4 to sometimes 5 DBs at all times, with Covington who's physical and doesn't shy away from contact. Even Arnold too, like he came up and gave a hit. Like that's such a difference. And I love Kalen Bullock, and I think he will be a great safety in the NFL. Like his coverage is incredible, but that difference is night and day. Like seeing Ramsey was functionally playing linebacker sometimes when they had Cobb and either Arnold or Gentry like on the line of scrimmage. Ramsey was doing linebacker run fits and he was doing them well. Like that's just it's a different we haven't had that. It's just a different type of physicality, a different type of ball knowledge too. Like having the feel for the game to be able to do that. It's just different.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say Greedy Vance's name. I think that's one guy we didn't say. He did good too. That secondary is good, man. That secondary is legit good. And, just a hell of a win. Utah State's going to should be a breeze. Let's see how the defense does there. And then we got an absolutely huge one against Michigan. And I mean, huge one. But the good news is we dropped that. The season's not over. This win, I can't describe how much this, win means for us. It was like if we win this game, we are instantly playoff contenders. And even Feinbaum's got to admit that we are now playoff contenders. We got three huge top 10 opponents. If we can go 1-2 in those games, we will make the playoffs. So come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
This team looks different.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame, 1 and 2 is not the goal, but that's like if that's the bare minimum of what we get and we take care of business everywhere else, playoff team. And I wouldn't be surprised if I heard that this year, but now after this game is kind of an expectation for me. It's not fair to change expectations mid-season, but I don't give a shit. This team can make the playoffs, and honestly, I'm expecting it to happen. But got to take care of business week to week. I'm expecting. I was gonna debate whether to say thrashing. I don't really care. Dominate Utah State, even if it's only a 30 point, like 30-0. I want the defense to continue the trajectory. I want some more pressure. But most of all, just stay locked in. Go into a bye week. Spend 14 days focusing solely on beating Michigan, and let's get this playoff season started. Thanks for watching. Fight on.